Good morning. It's Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. I hope you're toking up and tuning in because I've got one for you today. Sitting here talking with my friend Sandy. Miss Sandy, how you doing today?
I'm doing really good.
Cool. We both had a little bit of rain coming in, but not that big a deal.
Yes.
Now, this is one of my favorite subjects. Well, it's one of the subjects that I'm familiar with is TBI.
Yes.
Don't know what TBI is? Traumatic brain injury.
Yes.
You are a traumatic brain injury patient.
Yes. I suffered a traumatic brain fall on the ice during December 10th, 2007. They said, it's a concussion. It'll heal in a month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. Finally, at 2 years, they said, I guess this is what you have to deal with. You're like a football player, takes a bad hit, and you just don't see him again. Mm-hmm. And it completely changed my life. It completely changed my family's life. Everything that I was good at was gone. And the doctors finally told me, there's nothing we can do for you. Just go to your farm and raise your animals. That's where you do the best.
Now, were you in a coma or anything from yours?
No, I wasn't. And they call mine a mild traumatic brain injury because they don't know if I was unconscious or not. My daughter saw it happen. Mm-hmm. She thought I was dead. She said my head bounced like a basketball 3 times. And I've got 3 bulging discs my neck. Mm-hmm. But my remarkable thing was one of the first things that I read the first year that I could start doing a little bit of research, because I was going to have to figure this out on my own. The doctors are not any help. They do not know the long-term effects of brain injuries. And even I've contacted OU physicians and asked them which of your doctors has the most experience with the long-term effects of brain injury. And they came back and said, I'm sorry to say that none of us do.
None of them have all done the study and the research.
Well, they all have acute care knowledge, but they don't know what all happens with a brain injury after you go home. I don't care if you never went to the hospital. I don't care if you've had a head injury. You have damage, and then every time you bump your head, fall, whatever, you get additional damage, and it just piles on top of each other.
Just cumulative, yeah.
Yeah, and it progresses, and your chances of having Alzheimer's and all those things go up, seizures and all those things. But one of the first things I read was an article dated 1986, and it said if you had an intake of cannabis within an hour of a head injury, you did not suffer permanent brain damage. And I thought, that can't be real.
I've seen that.
They can't know something that important and keep it from people. It took me 8.5 years to find out that it really, truly is. And it's because of the high anti-inflammatory properties.
Right.
And even the Israeli military now has for some time, has cannabis concentrates in the field. If you get a head injury, a spinal injury, major injury like that, you are administered that immediately. And that's one of the reasons all the military that have the head injuries that don't know very much about them or don't know that that's what's causing a lot of problems in their life. They're very I'm very passionate about helping them as well. But
because you're in the military, you do get a lot of minor injuries sometimes,
Yes, but but all you have to have is a minor injury and then be close to a blast. I figured out that my brain was so delicate that I didn't even have to fall and hit my head. All I had to do was stumble and jar my brain, and I would immediately have problems. And mine was getting to the point that for 10 years, I had facial lapses, like I was having a stroke. As a matter of fact, my jaw slips to the side, stays that way now because it dislodged so many times. That would come when I had brain swelling and problems that were going on, but it was progressing to the point that I had lost my ability to speak. I was losing my ability to walk, and the last time it happened, it closed off my airway.
And brain injuries, it depends on what type of what area of the skull that injured the malady that you're going to have.
Well, it kind of does, but I've kind of figured out with helping and talking to a lot of people that it doesn't matter if you have a neurological disease, if you have damage, if you have a brain tumor, you have a lot of swelling in your brain that causes the same problems.
Right.
And so all of those things, it affects. Well, I wasn't using cannabis, unfortunately, when I fell and hurt my head. I had used it when I was younger and then stopped after kids, and so I wasn't using it, which is really bad, you know.
Well, that's what happened to a lot of our generations.
Uh-huh.
We were younger, I experimented with cannabis, yes.
Well,
and
then you get threatened with, you
you get
kids.
a job, you become part of
Yeah.
this. Yeah, I
Well,
understand.
and you get kids, and people are like, well, how about if I tell somebody that you do that?
There you go.
So, my kids were worth it. But even with that, the information on the brain injury, the United States government has a patent on cannabinoids, and they have had since 2003. It was filed in April of 1999. I'm a poster child for the patent. It talks about the neurological damage,
Right.
the TBI. It talks about neural repair and neural protectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about inflammation and autoimmune. I'm a poster child just
I
for the
know what
patent
you
itself. But to understand that it is protecting now, I have had remarkable results using cannabis with my brain injury, but it took a while and I had to tweak it and learn how to get it right. My art started about
we do have to say this is all in our own opinion.
Yeah.
It's not FDA
Yes.
research and funded like that, but it's in my opinion and
yes. And I've talked to a lot of people. I've helped a lot of people. I have done a lot of research. I have experimented on myself. I mean, intake methods make a lot of difference. The thing about it is that brain injuries continue to compound, but now what I'm using is not only, this is my experience, but I started using it after I was diagnosed with, well, let's take that back. I started smoking cannabis, my closet smoked for 3.5 years, believe that or not. I live on a big farm. I have insomnia from a brain injury. I can be up all times of night. I was afraid for my family to find out, especially my husband's family, because they were all very much against cannabis, just because they didn't know about it. They had the same knowledge and the same, horrible things that have been told to everybody.
They have been fed the reaper madness propaganda.
But I did not realize that within 2 months of me starting using cannabis, which I was out of state, somebody handed me something. I took a toke and I was like, oh my God, that squirrel in my brain that's been running in his cage for 5 years just shut up and took a nap.
That is fantastic.
And it was so relaxing. And so, because even taking that vacation was very stressful with a brain injury, flying with pressure in the cabin and all those things.
Well, we're going to take a break on that right there because that is very stressful. I hope that you do toke up and tune back in. This is Old School and Co. And I'm sitting here with my friend, Miss Sandy. And welcome back. This is Old School and Co. I hope you toked up and tuned in because I'm sitting here talking with my friend Miss Sandy. Now, we were talking about your traumatic brain injury,
Yes.
and a lot of people, when they have TBI or get TBI, it does change some things.
It changes a lot of things. There's
Oh,
actually
yeah, it changes a lot
there's a
of things.
list of over 100 different symptoms that you can have with a traumatic brain injury.
Right.
And most people don't realize that it changes a lot of your personality. A lot of people I know that have had brain injuries when they were early on, they were tagged as the hard kid,
Right.
the kid that got into fights, the kid that didn't learn, the kid that had problems, the kid that, had anger bursts and things. Those weren't kids with problems. Those were kids with brain injuries.
And that's what I was just,
I can actually track my first brain injury
I
back
can-
to age 10.
since you say that, I can track my first injury about age 10. I
Mhm.
hit my head real hard, and I'm sure that's where I got the 3 herniated discs and the chipped bone in my neck. And that was at age 10. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
most
that
people
affected
don't
my
even
entire life.
know. I've talked to a lot of people, and they didn't even realize that most of the problems that they've had a good part of their life, and the personality things that have caused them problem in relationships and things, they are a direct result of a brain injury.
Right.
And
I
then
talked
when
to a
you,
lot of vets.
yeah,
and
then when you get them piled on top of each other, but that can be changed. I am a perfect example of
you
that.
are, you're great.
Because in about 2012, when I started smoking the cannabis, well, within 3 months, I was doing art, and art was flowing out of me. First of
you
all,
got some rockin' art here.
that's the very first thing that I was able to do successfully after my brain injury. Everything I was good at was gone.
And this is when you introduced cannabis or THC.
Yep.
And at that time, I can tell people you weren't using CBD at that time.
No, I wasn't.
And then you did introduce CBD.
Yes. So my art came as a result of my cannabis. But in 2014, I was getting ready for an art show, and I told everyone, I don't know what's going on, but this is my last show, because I had totally lost use of my hands, and I was having a lot of health issues. And so I went to the doctor and had a physical, and I was diagnosed with SLE lupus.
Right. And this could possibly be related to your TBI?
No, not related to my TBI.
Totally different.
Yeah, totally different. Autoimmune disease, and I
Right.
probably had it for several years. It takes a while
Right.
for autoimmune diseases for you to be able to get it. But I had lost total use of my hands, so my art was gone. I was very, very sick. But when I found out what they were going to do medical-wise, I refused.
Oh, yeah. They want to go the drastic
Yeah.
route, don't
So I told my husband I will not go. I worked in medical for 15 years, and I know a lot of what pharmaceutical things do, because
Mhm.
that was part
You've
of my
seen it.
job, was documenting all that
Okay,
and
yeah.
researching and putting puzzle pieces together. That's why it's helpful for what I do now. But
Yeah, because when I started talking to you on the phone, you just wowed me so much.
yeah, well, what happened was, when I was diagnosed with lupus, the day I had been very, very truthful with my doctor, my family doctor,
Yeah, general practitioner.
nurse practitioner.
Okay,
But
there you
when
go.
I went to, when I told her that I was using cannabis for my brain injury, and I showed her proof, then she actually started getting interested in it and started doing a little research herself.
Cool.
So the day I went to have the physical, I was actually introduced to CBD in her office.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So your doctor carries CBD in her office?
She was, she started carrying after that. There was somebody who was distributing, and they were accessing through her office.
Very
But
good.
then she became a distributor.
Right.
But I was using a tincture. I started out on a tincture, and I was up to 1,500 milligrams, and that was pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And it was helping, but I was still housebound and bedbound. I also have a cutaneous lupus, and I'm allergic to the sun.
Oh.
And I live on a big farm.
Yeah, I understand.
And I have to take care of a lot of that farm. But I was very, very sick, and I couldn't even go outside for over 3 months. And I knew that all my research that cannabis could help. I just didn't know what I was doing wrong. And so what I did was started researching, and it was the TOKE method.
Right.
Because tinctures, even though they're one of the most popular ways, they get very little medication into your receptors. So I went from using of 1,500 milligrams of a tincture to using a half gram of a concentrated CBD shatter in addition to the cannabis, the THC that I was using. And when I did that, it was phenomenal.
It makes a huge difference.
It was like overnight. Within an hour of me starting, by the way, my intake method that I chose was vaping because what I had researched, the doctors were recommending it the most. You preserve your most cannabinoids and your terpenes that way.
Yeah. And it's one of the quickest delivery.
Well, one of the doctor's videos that I watched said what you want to do is take very small vapes that you can comfortably hold in.
Right.
And your goal is not to express any out. And he said if you do that, you're getting 90% into your bloodstream.
Really?
And it's immediate.
Yeah.
And I'm using something that's 80 to 90% active.
Okay.
So it was literally almost overnight that things changed for me. And then
it's amazing.
Yes.
Isn't it?
And so that's one of the reasons your intake method and what you're using and how you use it makes a huge amount of difference. If I would have stopped at the tincture, I would have said it helps some, but it's not a miracle.
It's not quite what you was looking for.
Yeah, well, no, it just wasn't what I had read it could be.
Right.
And so once I figured it out and got that right, it was amazing, amazing, amazing.
Because it does turn out everybody's different.
Yes.
You know, some people, this delivery system works better. This works better for these.
Well, but you need to know about your delivery systems. Your intake method is crucial.
Right.
10% if you smoke, 15% if you use a tincture or under your tongue.
Right.
Edibles, 25 to 30%. Okay? Let's go to suppositories.
I like suppositories.
You bypass your liver and you get 80% absorption, and people don't realize how important that is when you have something. If you have allergies, it's easier to control with things that are lighter. If you have a serious disease, you need some power punches.
See, I've got lower back pain.
Yes.
So using suppositories, in my opinion, it starts in my hip. I was really surprised because I'm used to the entire entire body reaction. But it started in my hips, and then it moved to basically my torso, moved to my chest, and then it came up I felt like it came up my spine to my head. And it was really a different sensation. Like you say, I could feel a little bit better.
Well, and a lot of times, if you're needing that powerful punch, the vaping, the suppositories, and then ingesting cannabis raw is huge. Cannabis is, in my opinion, the most important plant that we have on this earth. It was given to us. It was a gift. It's one of the 4 ingredients in the holy anointing oil that was proven by Sula Bennett in 1936. It's cassia, cannabosum, cinnamon, and myrrh. Those are the 4 ingredients in the holy anointing oil. And when you start using it the way it was more back in biblical times, which we've lost over 80 years of anybody knowing how to use it medicinally. And what we've been doing with it for 80 years has not been medicinal, or we would have had a lot more people healed.
And on that note, we're going to take a short break. This is Old School and Co. Wake and Bake, and I hope you token up and tuning in, because this is a good one. Welcome back to Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. I hope you toked up and you're tuning back in. I'm sitting here talking with my friend Sandy, and wow, we're just covering some great subjects here today.
I am loving being here. And I enjoy it. I look forward to enjoying the cookout as well.
Right on.
But just to...
well, I'm going to jump right into your art.
Oh, yes.
Because this is one of those deals we talked about. You, after your TBI,
yes,
your traumatic brain injury, you took a little break from your art.
Well, no, I wasn't doing art before that. This came as a result of my brain injury. And I found from other brain injury patients, sometimes they have special things that they're able to do. Things just flow out of me.
This is the one I just love. Who is this?
This is Jack Herer. Jack Herer is my favorite strain to do my art on. I love Jack because of all of his knowledge, but his strain is responsible for a lot of my art.
But the texture and everything on here, the
this
detail,
is a gourd.
I just love that.
Yeah,
now,
gourd.
Are you on the net with your art?
I have Creations by Sandy Amron that's on Facebook. But I usually try and have a show about once a year, and then I invite everybody to that. I didn't do any last year because of the COVID.
Right.
So I'll be looking to do one within the next year. But I do all kinds of art. These behind me.
Now, you showed me these. You've shown me in the daylight, and you've also shown me what they look like in the dark.
Yeah, so they glow in the dark. So the lightning glows in the dark. The moon on the cannabis glows in the dark. I love anything with bright color, vivid color. I even set paintings on fire. I do metal. I love that. I do wood. I do glass. I do paintings. My brain jumps around a lot, and I just enjoy a lot of different creative things.
My brain is one of those ping, 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 ping around the hall. Okay, there's a squirrel.
I finally have an outlet for the creativity in my brain.
It does make a difference, doesn't it?
Yes.
Now, this is another cool one here. Okay, now these are cool right here. But we're going to jump over to the eyeball here in just a second because I really love the eyeball.
Yeah. It's what you get when you work for an eye doctor for about 5 years.
Okay. We're jumping right over to the eyeball. She's jumping right into this one.
Yeah.
Now, is that not cool? I love that.
Alcoholic. Now, that is a gourd.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me just a minute ago if that was a musical instrument because you can shake it and hear the... You can hear
can.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But I had never seen a gourd before the first one that I started doing. And I started out by accident. I made some gifts for my family for Christmas because I didn't know how long I was going to be around. And so I wanted something to remember.
Now, do you go to different events and stuff like that with your art?
Some I do, but a lot of times it's just the individual when I have an individual event. Right. I have my arts for sale at any given time. I have a lot of people that are in competition for who can have the most pieces of my art.
I understand.
I do
alligator steel art, and that's the way I was when I was working on it. People, want this.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to take me 2 months to do it, 3 months. Yeah.
I do longhorns and I do a lot of different mediums, and I'm always learning and doing different things.
Now that's one of those deals where I think at Green Grove Fest, I don't know whether we're going to have any artists set up or not, but that's going to be June 25th, 26th, and 27th in Depew, Oklahoma. I'm going to be there. Are you going to be there?
I'll look at it. I've got a big...
that wasn't a set-up question. That was just right there. I threw it out.
I have a busy month in June.
Oh, you do? What else going on in June?
That is when we are doing our webinar.
Okay.
I have a lady that she was my hero, and she was a huge inspiration. Her story was a huge inspiration in my brain injury. No, this is Debbie M. Wilson.
Okay.
And she's coming to Oklahoma from Illinois. But she had a brain injury over 25 years ago. Someone backed over her head. She ended up with 7 types of seizures. Mm-hmm. They quit counting concussions after 25 concussions just from her seizures alone.
And she's written a book, right?
She has written books. She has been published in a lot of different things. She runs the Neurology and Cannabinoids site on Facebook.
Really?
And that is one of the best medical cannabis websites you can look at. She reaches over 13,000 people a week.
Cool.
And I started following her. I had read her story and it inspired me, but then I started following her website just to get the knowledge and to learn more.
That's one of the things I found out because of my wife's TBI is there's really more TBI people out there than you realize.
There are, but the thing about it is when you learn your endocannabinoid system.
And I happen to be TBI myself, so whatever.
So when you learn your endocannabinoid system and how it works, first of all, using cannabis as medicine and using it as recreational is totally different. I would say that 90% of the people in Oklahoma are not getting anywhere near the benefits that they can from cannabis because we have lost all the people that knew how to use it for medicine for over 80 years.
Right.
So
now you did bring up to me this DNA test that you found.
Yes. Because I help other patients, when I found out that there was an endocannabinoid DNA test you could do, I wanted to do one and see if it was legit.
Right.
And so I picked one and I did it. And what was remarkable is I did that in 2019 and it matched up to where things changed for me in 2017.
That is cool.
And it told what my THC ratio to my CBD ratio is, my primary and my secondary terpenes.
Now, did it tell you the ratio that you needed?
Yes. It tells me, so I'm 1 ratio of 1 on THC,
right.
4 on CBD.
Okay, cool.
Okay. But then I also, it told me that I have a genotype that my liver processes CBD faster. I never would have known that without doing this DNA test. So what it suggests is that I bypass my liver with my intake methods or that I way increase the amount of CBD.
And that's where you come up with that suppository.
Well, and the suppositories was just after looking at all the intake methods, when you really, really need a powerful punch, that just, when you look at what's called the bioavailability, how your body takes it in, how it absorbs it, and how it uses it, is totally different than just when you're just smoking. If you look at all the different cannabinoids, THC actually does very small percentage. It's all of those endocannabinoids working together, the terpenes working together. There are over 500 chemical compounds in that plant. And the difference in each strain is the level of each one of those and the combination of those cannabinoids and terpenes. And they all open different receptors in your body. So you need a balance of it. And we have genetically modified that balance out of it. That's why they've used, we can document medical use of cannabis all the way back to 27,000 BC. It's been used on every continent by every group of people. But you don't hear history of people just being stoned.
Right.
That's not how it was meant to be used as medicine. You need a better balance. And what happens is when we're raising the THC, to get that effect, we're lowering the CBD, the CBG, the CBN, and we need those.
Need them all to work in conjunction.
CBD opens about 90% of the receptors in your body, whereas THC maybe about 30% of the receptors.
Well, I'll tell you what, on that note right there, CBD end, this is Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. I'm sitting here talking with my friend Miss Sandy. And this has been a wonderful show. I hope you toke up and tune back in because it's going to have you back several times.
Too much time in it. Percocet me scientific. Bodies on a water farm. Too much slime in it, Percocet me scientific, bodies on a living, water farm, on shipping. Water whipping, water dripping, broke the pack, mixed it with the midget.